Three queens, three destinies. One unstoppable alliance. Across the bloodied fields of Britain and the storm-tossed seas beyond, their courage forged legends. Queen Boudica, fierce and unyielding, defied Rome with fire and fury. Queen Elizabeth I, cunning and resolute, shattered the Spanish Armada and protected a kingdom from invasion. Queen Anne, visionary and relentless, commanded armies that would shape Europe's future. Alone, each was formidable. Together, their combined strength became the storm that no enemy could withstand. Through siege, treachery, and relentless campaigns, they fought not only for survival but for a legacy that would echo across centuries. Witness the epic saga of power, strategy, and fire. Watch till the end. Like and subscribe to witness the ultimate royal alliance in action. One rise of the queens, birth, early life, and paths to power in the mists of history. Three women were born to reshape Britain and leave a legacy of fire and steel. Queen Boudica, the fierce warrior of the Iceni, entered the world in a land under Roman oppression. Her early life was shaped by brutality and injustice, the confiscation of her family's lands and the humiliation inflicted upon her people. From these wounds, a warrior was forged, her heart burning with the desire for justice and the courage to challenge the empire. By the time she reached adulthood, Boudica had mastered the arts of leadership and combat, ready to rally her people against the might of Rome. Far to the south, Elizabeth Tudor was born into a world of palace intrigue and political uncertainty. The daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, her infancy was marked by peril, betrayal, and the precarious balance of courtly favor. Elizabeth grew into a woman of unparalleled intelligence, skillful in the art of diplomacy, cunning in politics, and fearless in the face of threats to her throne. From a young age, she observed the delicate dance of power, learning to wield words as skillfully as swords, knowing that survival and dominance required both. Meanwhile, across the passage of decades, and Stuart was born into a kingdom marked by dynastic conflict and continental ambition. As the daughter of James II, she witnessed firsthand the intertwining of war and politics that would define her reign. Anne's education emphasized governance, strategy, and statecraft, instilling in her the ability to navigate turbulent waters. Though she did not wield a sword herself, she commanded armies through strategy, foresight, and the authority of her crown, shaping the destiny of Britain in an era of European conflict, though separated by centuries. The lives of these queens were united by circumstance, the call of leadership, the weight of legacy, and the need to defend their people against forces that sought to dominate them. Each queen rose from her own crucible of trials. Boudica against imperial tyranny, Elizabeth against foreign and domestic threats, and against the pressures of European warfare to become figures whose authority and courage would converge in legend. The formation of their imagined alliance begins with recognition of the power inherent in unity. Though Boudica's rebellion burned centuries before, Elizabeth's reign and Anne's campaigns in this tale of cinematic history, their spirits converge across time and space, a symbolic fellowship of rulers who understood that kingdoms were won not by one alone but by strength, strategy, and shared purpose. As they rise, the first sparks of collaboration take shape. Boudica's mastery of guerrilla warfare inspires Elizabeth's naval strategies, while Anne's understanding of large-scale continental campaigns informs their combined approach to imperial defense. They study maps together, share intelligence, and plan campaigns that will test the very limits of their courage and cunning. It is in this crucible of shared vision that the alliance is forged, uniting fire, intellect, and strategy into a single, unstoppable force. Their early encounters with enemies, Romans, Spanish fleets, and continental armies shape their leadership. Each queen learns from the other. Boudica's fiery passion tempered by Elizabeth's strategic foresight, Anne's methodical planning sharpened by Boudica's relentless determination. Together, they lay the foundation for campaigns that will reshape the world, proving that true power is the combination of heart, mind, and the willingness to fight for a shared destiny. By the end of Part 1, the stage is set. The three queens, each extraordinary in their own right, have come together in spirit and strategy. Their combined resolve marks the dawn of a new era, where kingdoms will rise or fall not by chance, but by the calculated brilliance of queens who command armies, inspire loyalty, and wield authority like a blade. 2. First campaigns and forging the alliance. The alliance of the three queens was no mere gesture of solidarity. It was a union born of necessity, forged in the fires of conflict. Boudica, Elizabeth, and each brought unique strengths to the table. Boudica's raw ferocity and experience in guerrilla warfare gave the coalition unmatched tactical flexibility. Elizabeth contributed shrewd strategic planning and mastery of naval operations, ensuring that no enemy could strike from the sea unchallenged. Anne's expertise in large-scale continental campaigns and logistics transformed their combined forces into a disciplined army capable of sustained warfare across multiple fronts. Their first campaign tested the alliance almost immediately. A coalition of rival lords, opportunistic nobles, and foreign mercenaries threatened the southern territories of Britain. Intelligence reports indicated coordinated attacks designed to destabilize the crown and weaken royal authority. The queens, recognizing the stakes, convened in a fortified council hall, their faces etched with resolve. Maps were spread, contingents assigned, and supply lines secured. For the first time, three monarchs, each accustomed to ruling alone, had a synchronized strategy, communication, and command a task far more complex than any single campaign they had undertaken individually. The initial skirmishes were brutal. Boudica led rapid strikes against the enemy's forward units, her warriors moving like shadows through forests and hills. Elizabeth's naval forces blockaded rivers and ports, cutting off reinforcements and supply routes. Anne's infantry and cavalry coordinated large-scale assaults, encircling enemy positions and forcing surrenders. The combined effect was overwhelming. What could have been a prolonged civil war collapsed within weeks under the calculated pressure of the Queen's unified command. Despite the victories, the campaign revealed the challenges of collaboration. Differing temperaments led to clashes. Boudica's impulsive attacks sometimes conflicted with Elizabeth's careful planning, while Anne's insistence on discipline occasionally frustrated the more spontaneous approaches of her allies. Yet, through negotiation, compromise, and mutual respect, they learned to integrate their methods, blending raw power, tactical ingenuity, and logistical precision. By the end of the campaign, their alliance had transforming from a symbolic partnership into a coordinated war machine. This first taste of victory was not just military, it was psychological. Rumors of three queens leading a single, unstoppable force spread across Britain and Europe. Enemy generals hesitated. Local rulers reconsidered rebellion, and the people began to view the monarchs not as distant figures but as embodiments of courage and authority. The Queen's combined presence inspired loyalty, fear, and awe in equal measure. After securing the southern territories, the Queens turned their attention to the eastern borders, where a series of fortified castles held by mercenary lords threatened trade routes and economic stability. Boudica's forces executed rapid raids, destabilizing enemy supply lines. Elizabeth deployed her fleet to patrol rivers and harbors, ensuring that reinforcements could not arrive by water. Uncommanded sieges, meticulously planning every assault to minimize losses, while maximizing strategic gain. In a display of coordination unprecedented in history, the Queens captured the castles within weeks, solidifying control over key regions and demonstrating the effectiveness of their alliance. Beyond the battlefield, political maneuvers reinforced their gains. Elizabeth negotiated with local nobility, ensuring loyalty through incentives and strategic marriages, and implemented administrative reforms in newly captured territories, stabilizing governance and securing resources for future campaigns. Boudica's presence among the people inspired morale and strengthened the bond between ruler and subject, reminding both the army and civilians that these queens were leaders who would fight alongside them if necessary. By the conclusion of their first campaigns together, the alliance of Boudica and Anne had been tested, tempered, and proven. Their forces had grown from disparate armies into a single, cohesive entity capable of extraordinary feats of strategy, endurance, and combat. Enemies had learned that three queens, united by vision and ambition, could accomplish what no single monarch could achieve alone. The early campaigns also sowed the seeds of legend. Stories of their coordinated attacks, brilliant strategies, and fearless leadership began to circulate far beyond Britain, capturing the imagination of allies and adversaries alike. It was clear. The era of individual monarchs would give way to a new epic of united female leadership, where the combined might of three queens could reshape nations, and determine the course of history. 3 major battles, an expanding influence having secured their home territories. The 3 queens set their sights beyond Britain, recognizing that true power required dominance, not only on their shores, but across strategic regions in Europe. Their first objective was to confront a coalition of rival states seeking to exploit internal instability. Spain, France, and several mercenary forces posed a coordinated threat, aiming to divide Britain's influence and expand their own. The queens understood that hesitation could invite disaster. Decisive action was essential. Queen Boudica led her warriors in lightning raids, striking at the enemy's supply lines and ambushing reinforcements before they could consolidate. Her knowledge of terrain and unconventional tactics confounded even the most experienced mercenary commanders. Meanwhile, Queen Elizabeth's navy secured the channel and critical riverways, cutting off enemy reinforcements from across the continent and ensuring that Britain's trade routes remained protected. Queen Anne orchestrated the grand strategy, coordinating troop movements, supply depots, and siege operations with meticulous precision, transforming their alliance into a military machine capable of sustaining campaigns across multiple fronts. The first major engagement came at the fortified city of Caledon. The Queen's combined forces faced a heavily defended stronghold held by mercenary commanders loyal to foreign powers. Boudica's skirmishers harassed the perimeter, creating chaos and drawing enemy attention. Elizabeth's artillery positioned strategically along the high ground, disrupted fortifications and forced defenders into disarray. Anne's infantry launched a calculated assault, moving in perfect synchronization with the diversions created by her allies. The city fell within days, its capture a testament to the power of unified leadership and the integration of distinct military strengths. Success in Caledon sent ripples across Europe. Rival monarchs began to reconsider direct confrontations, wary of facing the unprecedented alliance of 3 queens who combined the ferocity of warriors, the cunning of strategists, and the precision of master tacticians. Britain's influence expanded rapidly, with former enemy territories pledging loyalty, trade routes secured, and vassal states recognizing the authority of the queens. The perception of invincibility became as significant a tool as armies and ships. Their reputation alone deterred uprisings and invasions. Yet, victory brought challenges beyond the battlefield. Maintaining control over newly acquired territories required governance as skillful as war. Elizabeth oversaw diplomatic initiatives, forging alliances with local lords and neighboring nations, ensuring that military success translated into political stability, and implemented administrative structures, standardizing taxation and resource distribution to support ongoing campaigns. Boudica worked among the people, inspiring loyalty and preventing rebellion, demonstrating that leadership required presence and empathy, not just force. The Queen's next challenge lay across the sea. A fleet of mercenary ships allied with European rivals threatened to disrupt trade and launch raids along the coast. Elizabeth took command, directing a blockade that intercepted enemy vessels before they could reach British ports. Boudica's forces struck at landing parties, while Anne coordinated counterattack, ensuring that any incursion was swiftly neutralized. The combined operation resulted in a decisive victory, further cementing the strategic advantage of their alliance. As their influence expanded, the queens also demonstrated diplomatic finesse. Negotiations with continental powers secured treaties favorable to Britain, often leveraging their military victories as bargaining chips. They balanced aggression with diplomacy, understanding that sustainable power required both. Their decisions were informed by intelligence networks, correspondence with governors and allies, and careful analysis of enemy movements, allowing them to act decisively while minimizing unnecessary losses. By the end of this phase, the 3 queens had transformed Britain into a dominant power, with a network of territories, alliances, and trade routes, extending influence far beyond their island. Their combined leadership had shown that the strength of a nation was not merely measured by its armies, but by the cohesion, strategy, and foresight of those who wielded authority. The era of the queens had begun, and history would remember their campaigns as a testament to courage, intellect, and the unprecedented power of female leadership in a world dominated by male monarchs. For court intrigue, personal struggles, and managing the empire, victory abroad brought its own challenges at home. While Boudica, Elizabeth, and Anne had proven formidable on the battlefield, the corridors of power within Britain were riddled with intrigue, jealousy, and political maneuvering. Nobles sought to exploit their absence in distant campaigns, questioning decisions, raising disputes over taxation, and plotting rebellions. Even allies sometimes tested the limits of loyalty, reminding the queens that ruling required more than military genius. It demanded diplomacy, wisdom, and emotional resilience. Queen Boudica, accustomed to leading warriors in open combat, faced a different battlefield at court. The raw passion that fueled her victories now had to contend with petitions, rival claims, and conspiracies. She learned that patience could be as powerful as force, balancing her fiery temperament with measured judgment to quell unrest and maintain the loyalty of her people. Her presence among commoners and soldiers inspired devotion, reinforcing the connection between the crown and the governed. Elizabeth, ever the strategist, maneuvered through the labyrinth of court politics with subtlety and precision. She cultivated alliances, rewarded loyalty, and used intelligence to anticipate threats before they materialized. Her ability to communicate clearly, negotiate effectively, and wield influence without overt aggression allowed her to maintain control over England while simultaneously directing campaigns abroad. Elizabeth's mastery of perception and reputation became as vital as her naval strategies, ensuring that her authority remained unchallenged. Anne, though more reserved, brought a stabilizing hand to the administration of empire. She focused on long-term governance, organizing systems of taxation, trade, and infrastructure that supported both domestic stability and military operations. Anne's oversight ensured that the armies maintained supplies, that finances remained solvent, and that territories newly acquired in campaigns did not descend into chaos. Her methodical approach allowed the queens to wage war abroad without risking collapse at home. The queens also faced personal struggles. Boudica grappled with the emotional toll of leading her people into repeated conflict, mourning the lives lost under her command. Elizabeth navigated the isolation inherent in her position, balancing duty with the desire for companionship and trust. Anne bore the burden of expectation as a monarch in a complex European landscape, responsible for decisions that could shape the fate of nations and determine the survival of her dynasty. Each queen's resilience and dedication became a cornerstone of their collective strength, reinforcing their alliance, even in moments of doubt and vulnerability. Amid the intrigue, the alliance of the three queens proved invaluable. They relied on each other's counsel to navigate the treacherous waters of court politics. Boudica's decisiveness counterbalanced Elizabeth's caution, while Anne's careful planning ensured that both ambition and strategy were grounded in practicality. Their unity served as a shield against internal threats, demonstrating that collaboration among strong leaders could deflect challenges that might have overwhelmed a single monarch. Religious and cultural tensions added another layer of complexity. England and its territories were diverse, with differing beliefs, customs, and loyalties. The Queen's approach combined firmness with diplomacy. They respected traditions where possible, intervened decisively when rebellion threatened stability, and leveraged shared identity and patriotism to foster unity. Public ceremonies, military parades, and cultural patronage reinforced the presence and authority of the crown, projecting power while maintaining loyalty among subjects. Through these domestic trials, the queens learned that ruling an empire required more than conquest. It demanded empathy, communication, and foresight. Every decree, alliance, and personal decision had consequences, both immediate and long-term. By balancing internal governance with external campaigns, the queens ensured that Britain remained stable and prosperous, even as their armies projected power abroad. By the end of Part 4, the three queens had not only proven their dominance on the battlefield, but also established themselves as masterful rulers of a complex and often turbulent empire. Their alliance, forged in fire and battle, now extended to governance, diplomacy, and the hearts of their people, solidifying a legacy that would inspire generations. 5 overseas campaigns and global consolidation with Britain secure and their domestic authority strengthened. The three queens set their sights on expanding influence beyond the Isles. The world beyond Britain's shores was a theater of opportunity and danger territories ripe for trade, strategic ports, and rival powers. Eager to exploit weakness, Queen Elizabeth's mastery of naval warfare became pivotal. She orchestrated a fleet capable of not only defending the homeland but projecting power across distant seas. Boudica's unconventional tactics were adapted to foreign terrain, turning every raid and skirmish into a decisive statement of dominance, and coordinated logistics and large-scale troop movements, ensuring campaigns could be sustained over months, even years. Together, their combined leadership transformed Britain into a force capable of global reach. Their first major overseas challenge emerged when a coalition of European powers sought to control key ports in the Low Countries and disrupt trade routes vital to England's economy. Elizabeth commanded the navy, intercepting enemy ships and establishing blockades that cut supply lines. Boudica led rapid amphibious assaults on coastal fortifications, her warriors striking with ferocity and retreating before counterattacks could consolidate. Anne's expertise in siegecraft and coordination allowed for swift land campaigns, capturing strongholds and fortifying strategic positions. The result was a stunning victory that expanded Britain's influence, while signaling to rivals that the three queens could operate with unmatched efficiency and strategy. These overseas campaigns were not only military triumphs, but also exercises in diplomacy. The queens negotiated with local rulers, offering protection, trade agreements, and incentives in exchange for allegiance. Elizabeth's charisma and political acumen won allies across contested regions, while it ensured that the infrastructure and administration of new territories could sustain long-term control. Boudica's presence inspired confidence among troops and citizens alike, demonstrating that leadership was as much about presence and morale as it was about strategy and firepower. The Queen's combined approach also relied heavily on intelligence networks. Scouts, spies, and informants provided timely information, allowing them to anticipate enemy movements, prepare ambushes, and avoid potential traps. This integration of information, strategy, and execution made their campaigns extraordinarily effective. Every decision, from the placement of artillery to the timing of an assault, reflected their combined experience and unique strengths. One of the most notable naval engagements occurred when the Spanish Armada attempted to challenge England's dominance at sea. Elizabeth's fleet, supported by the tactical ingenuity of Boudica's warriors on land and Anne's coordination of reinforcements, struck with precision. The enemy fleet was scattered, many ships sunk or captured, and Britain's control of crucial sea lanes was firmly established. This victory not only safeguarded the homeland, but also ensured the security of overseas colonies, trade routes, and strategic ports, cementing Britain's emergence as a naval power. Beyond military conquests, the Queens focused on consolidating power and oversaw the establishment of governance structures in occupied territories, standardizing laws, taxation, and resource management. Elizabeth maintained diplomatic correspondence, negotiating treaties and alliances to prevent uprisings or external attacks. Boudica, ever the champion of the people, traveled to encourage loyalty, boost morale, and prevent rebellion. Together, they created a system in which military might, governance, and diplomacy were in perfect balance, ensuring that every victory translated into lasting influence. The global campaigns also strengthened the alliance itself. Shared hardships, combined successes, and the constant necessity of cooperation forged deep bonds of trust and mutual respect. The Queens had learned to anticipate each other's decisions, complement each other's strengths, and cover weaknesses in a way no single monarch could achieve alone. Their unity became legendary, an emblem of leadership and power that inspired fear in enemies and admiration among allies. By the end of these campaigns, Britain had transformed into a burgeoning empire. Its reach extended across seas, its trade secured, and its influence recognized throughout Europe. The Queen's vision of a globally connected and militarily dominant nation had become reality, achieved through courage, strategy, and the unprecedented cooperation of three extraordinary rulers. 6. Rebellion, governance. And maintaining the empire, even the most formidable armies and brilliant strategies cannot prevent discontent from simmering at home. As Britain expanded its influence overseas, the three queens faced the daunting task of maintaining stability within their own borders. Nobles grew restless, dissatisfied with taxation to fund campaigns abroad. Local lords chafed under centralized authority, seeking to reclaim autonomy. The people, inspired by victories but weary of conscription and levies, murmured dissent. For the Queens, suppressing rebellion required a careful balance of force, diplomacy, and public perception. Queen Boudica, the warrior spirit, led targeted interventions against uprisings, moving swiftly to confront rebel forces before they could gather momentum. Her presence inspired troops and civilians alike, reminding them that the crown was actively defending their lands. Elizabeth employed subtlety and intelligence, negotiating with influential figures to secure loyalty, while ensuring spies and informants monitored potential insurrections, and coordinated the deployment of forces and resources, making sure that any military action was precise, disciplined, and did not spiral into unnecessary chaos. One notable uprising arose in the Northern Territories, where a coalition of nobles rebelled against central authority, emboldened by foreign merchants promising support. Boudica's rapid response prevented the rebellion from gaining ground. Elizabeth's negotiations fractured alliances within the rebel coalition, and Anne's strategic placement of troops secured key strongholds. The combined efforts led to a swift resolution, restoring order while minimizing bloodshed. Maintaining the empire required more than military might. Governance and administration were equally critical, and focused on legal structures, standardizing taxation, trade regulations, and local governance to ensure that the territories remained stable and productive. Elizabeth maintained diplomatic relations with neighboring nations and local leaders, ensuring Britain's growing power was recognized and respected. Boudica's engagement with commoners built trust, creating a sense of shared destiny between the crown and its subjects. The queens also faced the challenge of succession, legitimacy, and preserving their legacy. Questions about heirs, dynastic continuity, and the distribution of power among nobles were constant sources of tension. The alliance of the three queens mitigated these pressures. They supported one another, shared counsel, and coordinated policies to safeguard the monarchy against both internal and external threats. Meanwhile, foreign powers sought to exploit any signs of weakness. Rivals attempted incursions along borders and colonies, testing the alliance's response. Elizabeth's fleet intercepted enemy ships before they could land. Boudica's rapid response units neutralized incursions on land and ensured that supply lines and reinforcements were ready at every critical point. The Queen's combined approach, blending diplomacy, intelligence, and military action, proved decisive in neutralizing threats without overextending their forces. Cultural and religious tensions required delicate management. Britain's empire encompassed diverse populations with distinct beliefs, customs, and expectations. The queens promoted policies that balanced respect for local traditions with enforcement of royal authority. Public ceremonies, patronage of arts, and strategic marriages reinforced loyalty, projecting both strength and benevolence. By intertwining governance with cultural engagement, they maintained stability while consolidating their growing empire. By the end of Part 6, the three queens had demonstrated that ruling an empire demanded far more than battlefield victories. Their combined leadership, intelligence, and foresight allowed them to suppress rebellion, maintain loyalty, and secure Britain's position as a dominant power. Their alliance had matured into a model of cooperative monarchy, proving that unity among strong leaders could achieve what no single ruler could accomplish alone. Ciety, final war's ultimate triumphs, and legacy as the decades of campaigns, governance, and alliances unfolded. The three queens faced their final and most formidable trials. By now, Britain's power was recognized across Europe. Yet envy, fear, and ambition never rested. Rival coalitions, threatened by the unprecedented alliance of three queens, sought to crush their authority through coordinated attacks on multiple fronts. It was a test of endurance, strategy, and leadership, one that would define their legacy forever. The final series of conflicts began in the Northern Territories and coastal regions, where combined forces of mercenary armies and disloyal nobles attempted to destabilize the monarchy. Boudica led rapid strikes, taking the enemy by surprise and preventing them from consolidating. Elizabeth deployed naval blockades, cutting off reinforcements and supplies, while Anne coordinated large-scale sieges and troop maneuvers. Each queen's distinct approach complemented the others, creating a seamless and nearly invincible military apparatus. Battles were fierce, the clash of steel and strategy echoing across the land. But the Queen's coordination turned potential disaster into decisive victory. Beyond the battlefield, the Queens confronted diplomatic challenges. European powers, initially hostile, began negotiating treaties, offering recognition, trade agreements, and alliances in exchange for peace. Elizabeth's eloquence, and political insight transformed enemies into partners. Anne's administrative reforms ensured the stability of occupied territories, and Boudica's charisma inspired loyalty both among soldiers and citizens. The queens proved that triumph in war required not only combat, but wisdom, negotiation, and foresight. One of the most dramatic campaigns occurred at the coast of Iberia, where rival fleets sought to challenge Britain's growing influence. Elizabeth personally commanded the naval forces. Boudica orchestrated landing raids and guerrilla-style skirmishes, and Anne managed the overall strategy, ensuring that supply lines and reinforcements reached every front. Their combined efforts resulted in a decisive naval victory, securing trade routes and consolidating Britain's role as a preeminent global power. Even as victory was achieved abroad, the queens remained attentive to their empire at home. They implemented laws, cultural programs, and administrative structures that strengthened governance and loyalty. Public works, festivals, and military parades reinforced unity, while strategic marriages and alliances extended influence. The empire they had built was more than territory. It was a system of governance, diplomacy, and military might, crafted through vision, collaboration, and relentless determination. The queen's personal legacies were intertwined with the story of the empire. Boudica became immortalized as the fierce protector of her people, a symbol of resistance and courage. Elizabeth was celebrated as the strategic genius who defended her nation and expanded its influence with intellect and diplomacy. Anne's contributions were seen in the sustained power and organization of Britain, her foresight ensuring that their victories endured across generations. Together, they were remembered not only as rulers, but as a triumphant alliance, whose combined leadership altered the course of history. By the end of their reigns, the alliance had created a Britain that was stronger, more unified, and far more influential than it had ever been. Their military campaigns, governance, diplomacy, and courage established a legacy of power and stability that resonated for centuries. Their story became legend. Three queens, each remarkable alone, whose unity transformed nations and whose names were forever etched in the annals of history. The age of the queens demonstrated that leadership, courage, and vision when combined overcome the greatest challenges. They proved that empires are not built by force alone but by intelligence, collaboration, and the ability to inspire loyalty, fear, and admiration in equal measure. Theirs was a legacy of fire, strategy, and unbreakable resolve, a testament to the enduring power of unity, courage, and the indomitable spirit of female leadership. Conclusion. Legacy of the Queen's Alliance. The story of Boudica, Elizabeth I, and Anne is more than a tale of battles and victories. It is a testament to the transformative power of unity, courage, and visionary leadership. Alone, each queen shaped history in her own right. Boudica as the fierce defender of her people, Elizabeth as the cunning strategist who protected and expanded her nation, and Anne as the masterful organizer who ensured the stability and longevity of the empire. Together, in this legendary alliance, they achieved feats that no single monarch could have accomplished, turning Britain into a dominant power both at home and abroad. Their legacy extends beyond military triumphs. They demonstrated that effective leadership requires a balance of strength, intelligence, diplomacy, and empathy. By coordinating armies, governing territories, and inspiring loyalty, they built a foundation for an empire capable of sustaining influence across centuries. Their story also redefined perceptions of female leadership, proving that queens could wield power decisively, strategically, and compassionately. The alliance of these three queens became a symbol of how collaboration among strong leaders can overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Their campaigns, governance, and diplomacy reshaped Britain's place in the world, laying the groundwork for the nation's rise as a global superpower. Today, their legacy resonates in the modern monarchy not merely as rulers of an island kingdom, but as visionaries whose courage, intellect, and unity set an enduring standard for leadership. In the end, the tale of the three queens is one of fire and strategy, of loyalty and courage, of an alliance that changed the course of history. It reminds us that greatness is not achieved in isolation, but through cooperation, foresight, and the unwavering commitment to protect, inspire, and lead. Their story lives and a timeless example of how power, when guided by wisdom and unity, can shape empires and leave an indelible mark on the world.